The evening rain drummed against the windows of Rossetti's Italian bistro as Lieutenant Commander Vera Kellerman slipped into a corner booth, her damp jacket draped over civilian clothes that concealed more than they revealed. She had chosen this quiet neighborhood restaurant specifically for its anonymity, needing a place where she could simply be another face in the crowd after 3 grueling months of classified operations overseas. The gentle murmur of conversation, mixed with the soft jazz playing overhead, created the perfect backdrop for solitude. Vera studied the menu while her trained eyes automatically cataloged exit routes and potential threats, a habit that had kept her alive in places where American uniforms painted targets on backs. Tonight, she wanted nothing more than a hot meal and the luxury of blending into normal civilian life. Before we dive into this story, drop a comment and let us know what state you're watching from. Maybe you've witnessed similar quiet courage in your community where everyday heroes walk among us unrecognized. 3 tables away, Marcus Henley nudged his companions and gestured toward the woman sitting alone. He had been watching her since she entered, noting the way she moved with purpose despite appearing vulnerable in her solitude. Marcus leaned back in his chair, a predatory smile spreading across his face as he assessed the lone woman. His companions, Trevor Voss and Danny Carrero, followed his gaze with growing interest. The 3 men had made a sport of targeting women who appeared defenseless, finding twisted entertainment in their discomfort and fear. "She looks like easy pickings," Marcus whispered to his friends, his voice carrying the arrogance of someone who had never faced real consequences for his actions. Trevor chuckled darkly while Danny cracked his knuckles in anticipation. They had perfected this routine over months of similar encounters, always choosing victims who seemed unlikely to fight back or cause trouble. Vera sensed the shift in atmosphere before she saw it, her peripheral vision catching the subtle change in body language at the nearby table. Years of combat training had honed her instincts to razor sharpness, and right now every alarm bell in her mind was ringing. She continued studying her menu, but her muscles tensed imperceptibly as she prepared for whatever might come next. The waitress, a young college student named Patricia, approached Vera's table with nervous energy. She had also noticed the 3 men and their unwelcome attention, but felt powerless to intervene. "Can I start you with something to drink tonight?" she asked, her voice slightly strained with concern that she tried to mask behind professional courtesy. "Just water for now." "Thank you," Vera replied softly, her voice carrying a deliberate vulnerability that masked the steel beneath. She had learned long ago that appearing weak often provided the greatest tactical advantage, allowing enemies to reveal their intentions before she revealed her capabilities. Patricia nodded and hurried away, casting worried glances back at both Vera's table and the 3 men who continued their whispered planning. The restaurant's other patrons remained blissfully unaware of the tension building in their midst, lost in their own conversations and meals. Marcus stood first, his movements casual but purposeful as he approached Vera's booth. His companions remained seated but alert, ready to provide backup if needed. The plan was simple and had worked countless times before: intimidate, isolate, and escalate until their target either fled in fear or submitted to their demands. "Excuse me, sweetheart," Marcus said as he slid uninvited into the seat across from Vera, his tone dripping with false charm that barely concealed his malicious intent. "You look like you could use some company tonight. A pretty little thing, like you shouldn't be eating all alone in a place like this." Vera looked up from her menu with what appeared to be startled surprise, her brown eyes wide and seemingly innocent. "That's very kind of you, but I'm actually enjoying the quiet evening by myself," she responded politely, every word carefully chosen to avoid provocation while establishing clear boundaries. Marcus laughed, a harsh sound that drew uncomfortable glances from nearby tables. "Oh, come on now, don't be so uptight," he said, his voice growing louder and more aggressive. "We're just trying to be friendly here. Maybe buy you a drink, show you a good time. No need to be such a cold little princess about it." Trevor and Danny rose from their table in synchronized movement, positioning themselves to block potential escape routes. Their presence was meant to intimidate, to make it clear that this was no longer a simple conversation, but a coordinated effort to corner their target. Vera's hands remained steady on the menu, but her breathing had shifted almost imperceptibly to the controlled rhythm she had learned in survival training. She could feel the weight of concealed muscle memory beneath her civilian facade, years of hand-to-hand combat expertise coiled and ready like a compressed spring. "I really do appreciate the offer, but I prefer to dine alone tonight," Vera said, her voice still maintaining its gentle tone despite the growing threat. "Perhaps you gentlemen could return to your table and let me enjoy my meal in peace." The restaurant manager, an elderly man named Giuseppe Morelli, had begun to notice the disturbance from behind the bar. His weathered face creased with concern as he debated whether to intervene, knowing that confronting aggressive customers could escalate an already volatile situation beyond his ability to control. Marcus's expression darkened at her continued rejection, his false charm evaporating like steam from a hot plate. "Listen here, princess," he snarled, leaning forward across the table until his face was mere inches from hers. "I don't think you understand the situation you're in right now. We're trying to be nice, but that patience won't last forever." Danny moved closer to Vera's booth, his bulk casting a shadow over the table as he crossed his arms menacingly. Trevor positioned himself near the restaurant's front entrance, effectively cutting off her most obvious escape route. The coordination was practiced, methodical, the result of too many similar encounters. Other diners had begun to notice the commotion, their conversations dropping to nervous whispers as they witnessed the intimidation unfolding before them. An elderly couple at a nearby table exchanged worried glances but made no move to intervene, fear keeping them frozen in their seats. Vera's peripheral vision tracked every movement, cataloging positions and calculating distances with the precision of someone trained to turn any environment into a battlefield. Her right hand shifted almost imperceptibly closer to the steak knife beside her water glass, though she hoped desperately that this situation could still be resolved without violence. Giuseppe finally gathered the courage to approach, his hands trembling slightly as he cleared his throat. "Excuse me, gentlemen, is there perhaps some problem here that I can help resolve?" he asked with forced politeness. Marcus turned his predatory gaze toward the restaurant manager, his voice dripping with contempt. "Mind your own business, old man, before you get hurt too. We're just having a friendly conversation with a lady here. Nothing that concerns you or your little establishment." Giuseppe's face paled at the naked threat, his hands shaking more visibly as he took an involuntary step backward. The elderly manager had seen trouble before, but never anything this menacing or coordinated. His restaurant had always been a safe haven for families and couples, not a hunting ground for predators. Trevor chuckled darkly from his position near the door, enjoying the fear radiating from the manager. "That's right, Grandpa. Walk away and pretend you didn't see anything. Nobody wants this to get ugly, especially not for someone who can't protect themselves." Vera watched Giuseppe's retreat with growing concern, recognizing that civilian intervention would only put innocent people at risk. Her military training had taught her that sometimes the best way to protect others was to handle threats personally and decisively, without allowing collateral damage. The restaurant's atmosphere had shifted completely now, conversations dying as patrons sensed the violence simmering beneath the surface. Patricia ducked behind the bar, her eyes wide with terror as she clutched a cordless phone, debating whether calling the police would escalate the situation beyond anyone's ability to control it safely. Danny reached down and placed his meaty hand on Vera's shoulder, his grip firm and possessive. "Time to stop playing hard to get, sweetheart," he growled, his fingers tightening with deliberate pressure. "We've been more than patient with your attitude, but every good thing has to come to an end eventually." The touch triggered something primal in Vera's trained nervous system, her body recognizing the transition from verbal threat to physical assault. Every fiber of her being wanted to react with devastating force, but she fought to maintain her civilian facade for just a few moments longer, hoping against hope that de-escalation was still possible. Marcus slid further into the booth, effectively trapping her against the wall while Danny maintained his grip on her shoulder. The coordination was seamless and practiced, revealing this was far from their first time cornering a victim in public. Their confidence spoke to a pattern of success that had never been properly challenged. "Now then," Marcus said with renewed smugness, "I think we've established who's in control here. Why don't you come with us for a little ride? And we can discuss this situation somewhere more private. Somewhere without all these nosy witnesses watching our every move." Vera's brown eyes hardened almost imperceptibly, the last traces of feigned vulnerability beginning to evaporate like morning mist. Her breathing shifted to the controlled rhythm of someone preparing for combat, though her movements remained deceptively calm and measured. "I'm not going anywhere with you," Vera said quietly, her voice carrying a new edge that none of the three men recognized as the sound of a weapon being drawn. The tremor of fear was gone, replaced by something far more dangerous. The calm certainty of someone who had faced death in foreign deserts and emerged victorious. Danny's grip tightened painfully on her shoulder, his other hand moving to grab her arm. "That wasn't really a request, Princess. We're past the point of asking nicely, and you're past the point of having a choice in the matter. Time to move before this gets unpleasant for everyone involved." The shift in Vera's posture was subtle but unmistakable to anyone trained to recognize it. Her spine straightened with military precision, her shoulders squaring despite Danny's grip. The frightened civilian mask was dissolving rapidly, revealing glimpses of the warrior beneath the ordinary clothes. Marcus noticed the change first, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his features as he encountered something he had never seen before in their victims. There was no fear in her eyes anymore, no pleading or desperation. Instead, there was a cold calculation that made him momentarily question their usual tactics. Trevor moved closer from his position by the door, sensing that their routine intimidation was meeting unexpected resistance. The three men had never encountered a target who responded to escalation with anything other than terror, and this deviation from their established script was beginning to create doubt in their coordinated approach. "You're making a serious mistake," Vera said, her voice dropping to a lethal whisper that cut through the restaurant's tense atmosphere like a blade. Her eyes locked on a Marcus with the unwavering focus of a sniper acquiring a target. And for the first time in years, he felt genuine fear crawl up his spine. Danny tried to yank her from a booth, but found himself meeting unexpected resistance. Her body had become an immovable object, planted with the stability of someone who had endured combat training designed to break lesser minds. The ease with which he had expected to manhandle her simply wasn't there. "What the hell?" Danny muttered, confusion replacing his earlier confidence as he pulled harder on her arm. She felt different now, solid and unyielding in a way that defied her appearance. The soft civilian he thought he was grabbing had somehow transformed into something that felt dangerously substantial. Trevor approached from behind, reaching out to grab her other arm and assist in forcing her from the booth. The moment his fingers made contact with her shoulder, Vera's head turned with predatory precision, fixing him with a stare that had once frozen enemy combatants in their tracks. Marcus swallowed hard, his bravado crumbling as he finally recognized the signs his inexperience had missed. The woman sitting across from him wasn't a victim at all. She was something far more dangerous than any of them had ever encountered, and their simple harassment had just awakened a sleeping nightmare. The soft amber lighting of Meridian Bistro cast warm shadows across the polished mahogany tables as Sergeant First Class Raina Blackwood settled into her corner booth. Her civilian clothes, a simple navy cardigan and dark jeans, concealed the disciplined posture that 18 months of Navy training had ingrained in her bones. She had chosen this table deliberately, back to the wall, clear sight lines to both entrances, though to any observer, she appeared to be simply a young woman enjoying a quiet dinner alone. The restaurant hummed with the gentle conversation of evening diners, the soft clink of silverware against porcelain creating a peaceful symphony that Raina found oddly comforting after 3 weeks at sea. Her fingers traced the rim of her water glass as she studied the menu, though her peripheral vision automatically cataloged every patron, every server, every potential exit. Old habits from her military police training died hard, even during shore leave. Before we dive into this story, drop a comment and let us know what state you're watching from. Maybe you've witnessed acts of unexpected courage in your community. The front door chimed as three men entered, their voices already raised in boisterous laughter that cut through the restaurant's serene atmosphere like a blade. Marcus pressed himself against the back of the booth, his hands raised in surrender as the full weight of his mistake crashed down upon him. "Please, I'm sorry. We didn't know," he stammered, his voice cracking like a teenager's as genuine terror replaced his earlier arrogance. The predator had become prey in the span of heartbeats. The restaurant erupted in stunned silence, broken only by Danny's moaning and Trevor's labored breathing. Patricia emerged from behind the bar, her eyes wide with amazement as she witnessed the complete transformation of the woman she had thought needed protection. Giuseppe stood frozen near the kitchen, his mouth agape at the display of controlled violence. Vera stepped over Trevor's prone form with practiced ease, her movements still carrying the fluid grace of someone who had mastered combat in the world's most dangerous places. "You and your friends have been terrorizing innocent people," she said to Marcus, her voice carrying the weight of moral authority. "That ends tonight." The sound of sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer as Patricia's emergency call finally brought official response. Other diners began to emerge from their shocked paralysis, whispers of amazement rippling through the room as they realized they had witnessed something extraordinary. Marcus cowered as Vera approached, no longer the confident predator who had targeted what he thought was a helpless victim. The tables had turned completely, and he found himself facing the consequences of a lifetime spent preying on those he perceived as weak and defenseless. The police officers who entered Rossetti's Italian Bistro moments later found a scene that defied their expectations. Two men writhed on the floor in obvious pain, while a third cowered in a booth, all three clearly neutralized by the composed woman standing calmly beside them with perfect military bearing. Officer Maria Santos recognized the stance immediately, her own military background allowing her to identify a fellow service member even in civilian clothes. "Ma'am, I'm going to need to see some identification," she said respectfully, though her tone already carried the deference due to someone who had clearly acted in justified self-defense. "Lieutenant Commander Vera Kellerman, United States Navy," Vera replied, producing her military identification with practiced efficiency. "These three men attempted to assault me after I repeatedly asked them to leave me alone. I used only the minimum force necessary to neutralize the threat they posed." The restaurant patrons watched in awe as the full scope of what they had witnessed became clear. Giuseppe approached with trembling hands to shake Vera's hand, thanking her for protecting his establishment and customers. Patricia beamed with admiration, no longer seeing a victim but a genuine hero who had stood up to predators. As the three men were led away in handcuffs, their reign of terror permanently ended. The restaurant buzzed with excited conversation about the incredible courage they had witnessed. If this story moved you, please drop a comment about what resonated most with you, or share if you've witnessed similar hidden strength revealed when it mattered most.